Logical morning. Welcome to Vidhigya presents the Hindu newspaper analysis. Today's session will have following segment. First, overview of today's newspaper. Second, must-know topics and explanation. And third, quiz time with 5 important questions. So starting with the first segment, that is overview of today's newspaper. So here the first important article is India-Japan set target for 42 billion investment. So this will discuss that India and Japan have agreed to invest 42 billion. This is also called 5 trillion yen, 5 trillion yen. So yen is a national currency of Japan. Yen is a national currency of Japan. No important article from this paper. Today is Sunday, so there aren't any editorial articles or explain session. So this article is also similar to the previous one, that India-Japan target investment of 42 billion. Another important article, that is Ukraine conflict gives jitters to auto electronics sector. So this will discuss in detail in our second segment. Russia claims hypersonic missile strike. So this is important. So where you have to know about this, which missiles which hypersonic missile is used by Russia, and the name is this one, Kinjal hypersonic missile, which can elude most of the defense systems. So this is important. The hypersonic missile, also that Russia is leading the race in the hypersonic missile category. And the last important article is Overlooking reasonable restriction. This is related to Karnataka High Court judgment banning the wearing of hijab in the school and colleges where there is a prescribed mandatory school uniform. So these are the 4 articles that we'll discuss. So first article is India-Japan set target for 42 billion investment. So India and Japan set an investment target of 5 trillion yen. That is 5 trillion yen, that is 42 billion in the next 5 years. So it will be invested in next 5 years. So in a meeting Delhi for 14th annual, this was the 14th annual summit between India and Japan. Also along with this agreement for 42 billion investment, the two sides also exchanged 6 agreements on cyber security, economic partnership, waste water management, urban development, a clean energy partnership, and agreement on promoting bamboo-based product from the Northeast region. So Japan is an important country for India, because Japan is also a member of Quad. China also has disputes with Japan, both Japan and India, and like both countries in the Indo-Pacific region. Therefore, Japan becomes a natural ally for India, and therefore the collaboration between Japan and India is important. And this can be seen that Japan is willing to invest $42 billion in the India in next 5 years, and they are also agreed on. They will also sign agreement on various other sectors such as cybersecurity, economic partnership, wastewater management, urban development, clean energy, and agreement on, since Japan is technologically superior country. So India can also collaborate in technological sector with the Japan in order to improve its efficiency, and can get technology from the Japan and can manufacture products in its own country. Second topic is Ukraine conflict gives jitters to auto electronics sector. So the Russia-Ukraine conflict is expected to further impact the already stressed global semiconductor supply as raw material exported from the two countries, such as neon gas, chemical, and palladium. So neon gas and palladium, these are the two important, these are not the only, these are the two important raw material for the semiconductor industry. So semiconductor chips are already in shortage because of COVID-19, that there was a low demand, and suddenly when the cases started declining, there was a high demand of electronic products and automobiles. Therefore, there is a less supply, and because the manufacturing facilities were shut down due to COVID, so there is a high supply, but there is a less supply but high demand. So there's already shortage. And now with the Russia-Ukraine crisis, Ukraine, which exports almost 70%, which provides almost 70% of neon gas to the world, and Russia almost 40% of palladium to the world for the semiconductor industry are at war. So according to Counterpoint Research, Ukraine and Russia hold reserve of some rare elements required in the production of semiconductors. These are required in the semiconductors, vehicle battery, and other related components. So Ukraine caters to almost 70% of world's neon demand. Ukraine's 20% of world's neon demand. And neon gas is a byproduct of Russian steel plant, which is then filtered and supplied. And at the same time, Russia also caters to the 40% of the world's demand of palladium. So now, because of the war, the supply has been hit because the major two companies in the Ukraine are shut because of the war. Therefore, supplies will be affected, and this will further impact the semiconductor industry. So this will lead to increased prices of the respective components, while the financial sanction imposed on Russia. With the financial sanction imposed on the prices of these elements are likely to increase by at least 20%, which will make the production of electric vehicles. So the semiconductor chips are very much important for the electric vehicles or the new vehicles that use a new technology. For the semiconductor chips are in demand. So because of the war, the supply will be affected. Therefore, because of the less supply and more demand, the prices of the semiconductor chip will be increased, and the prices of the component of these electric vehicles will also increase. Therefore, the price of overall electric vehicles will increase. This will impact the vehicle manufacturing automobile industry, which are manufacturing the electronic vehicles on other vehicles. So here you have to remember that the two important raw material, that is palladium and neon. Palladium by Russia, neon by Ukraine. So these are important. These are used for making semiconductor, electric vehicle batteries, and other similar products which use semiconductor chips. Now, the Russia claims hypersonic missile strike. So here we do not need to know. We have already discussed about the war. What is important is about hypersonic missile strike. Which one is? So the use of Russia's new Kinjal. So you have to remember the name, the hypersonic missile, which can elude most defense systems. So one of the defense system that we have discussed is S-400 Triumph defense system from Russia. So Russian President Vladimir Putin, who unveiled the Kinjal. So Kinjal missile was unveiled in the year 2018. It is a hypersonic missile. Which means the speed of this missile is 10 times, almost 10 times than the speed of sound. This missile is a hypersonic missile and termed an ideal weapon. It flies at 10 times the speed of sound. Analysts say Russia is leading the hypersonic race followed. So first, this is the Kinjal missile of Russia. It is a hypersonic missile, 10 times speed of sound. And in hypersonic missile, Russia, then USA, then China. These are the three countries leading the race in the hypersonic missile system. So the last article is Overlooking Reasonable Accommodation. So we have discussed earlier that the Karnataka High Court has banned the hijab in the schools and colleges where there were prescribed uniform. So that is not important. What is important is reasonable accommodation. What is this principle of reasonable accommodation? So the court rejected an argument in support of permitting Muslim women girls wearing headscarves that was based on the principle of reasonable accommodation. So this article says that court has ignored this principle of reasonable accommodation. So it is a principle that promotes equality, enables the grant of positive rights, and prevents discrimination based on disability, health condition, or personal belief. It is used primarily in disability rights sector. So primarily this reasonable restriction is used in the disability rights sector. So what is this reasonable accommodation? Reasonable accommodation is a principle wherein the institution, or you can say facility, provides reasonable accommodation to the people who are disabled, who are in different situations where they cannot expected to follow the same set of guidelines, or where they are not expected to follow the same procedure. So in that situation, there is a reasonable accommodation so as to ensure equality and so as to ensure them their rights are protected. So Article 2 of the United Nations Convention on Rights of People with Disability. So Article 2 of the UN Convention of Rights of People with Disability defined reasonable accommodation, necessary and appropriate modification and adjustment, not imposing it. So it is about appropriate modification and adjustment and not imposing a disproportionate or undue burden where needed in a particular case to ensure person with disability the enjoyment or exercise or equal. So it allows. So the principle of reasonable accommodation talks about making necessary and appropriate modification and do not put undue burden, disproportionate or undue burden on the person in a particular case, so as to ensure that the person with the disability also enjoy or also enjoy their right and exercise on equal basis and exercise their rights on equal basis with other of all human rights and fundamental freedoms. So it is about making appropriate modification and adjustment so that person who are disabled or person with disabled do not put in a situation disproportionate situation, or do not put under undue burden, and therefore they are enabled, or you can say therefore they are given the opportunity to exercise their right or enjoy their rights equally in comparison to other people. So also in 2016, the International Labour Organization came out with a practical guide on promoting diversity and inclusion through workplace. This is a way of promoting diversity. So there are different people belonging to different strata and like different physical structure, physical features. Therefore they are not able to, therefore it will be very difficult for them to follow a prescribed guideline, or you can say standard guideline. Therefore it allows for the reasonable accommodation so as to ensure that they are also able to enjoy their fundamental freedom and right of equality in comparison to other people. So the ILO says the need for workplace accommodation may arise in a variety of situations. So now ILO says, International Labour Organization says, the need for workplace accommodation may arise in a variety of situations, but four categories of workers were chosen for the guide. So in this ILO, there were four categories of workers were chosen for reasonable accommodation principle. And these are workers with disability, workers living with HIV and AIDS, third, pregnant workers and those with family responsibility, and fourth, workers who hold a particular religion and belief. So in ILO, there is this reasonable accommodation is also for workers who hold particular religion or belief. Also in India, so you have to remember right of people with disability, RPD Act 2016. So defines reasonable accommodation as necessary and appropriate modification adjustment without imposing a disproportionate or undue burden in a particular case to ensure the person with disability to enjoyment or exercise of rights equally with others. So we have discussed this is to ensure that the person with disability also enjoy their right or exercise their right equally with others. The definition of discrimination, section 2H, includes denial of reasonable. So discrimination will happen when there is a denial of reasonable accommodation. So when the reasonable accommodation are denied to people with disability, then this will be discrimination under section 2H of Right of People with Disability Act 2016. In the same act, section 3, which deals with equality and non-discrimination, subsection 5 says, the appropriate government shall take necessary steps to ensure reasonable accommodation for person with disability. However, in India, this is a right relating to people with disability. At the same time, the article says in the recent, so in India also there is a principle of reasonable accommodation. However, it is only limited to right of people with disability, or you can say this reasonable accommodation is limited to person with disability. So the article says in the recent Karnataka verdict on wearing hijab, the High Court did not accept the argument based on South African decision that reasonable accommodation can be made for allowing minor variation to uniform to accommodate personal religion. So the article says the Karnataka High Court did not accept the argument which was based on a South African decision that allowed reasonable accommodation, that said the reasonable accommodation can be made for allowing minor variation. There could be minor variation to the uniform. So this article says that on the basis of South African decision, the Karnataka High Court could have allowed minor variation in the uniform so as to accommodate personal religious belief. The appeal against the verdict in the Supreme Court provides an opportunity to see if the concept can be used. So in India, since principle of reasonable accommodation is related to right of a person with disability, however, this principle was not used in the by the Karnataka High Court in hijab case. But now the decision will be challenged in the Supreme Court, and therefore we'll see whether the Supreme Court allows reasonable accommodation principle in the realm of belief and consciousness as it is there in the International Labour Organization, or also South African courts have said. South African courts have said that that minor variation can be done in the uniform for the reasonable accommodation. So when the matter will go to Supreme Court, then we'll discuss more about whether in India this can be used or not. Now, 5 important questions. Question number first: who among the following is the Prime Minister of Japan? Your options are Fumio Kishida, Scott Morrison, Vladimir Putin, none of the above. The correct option is Fumio Kishida. Scott Morrison is the PM of Australia. PM of Australia. Vladimir Putin, President of Russia. Fumio Kishida, PM of Japan. Question number 2. Japan is planning to invest how much in India in next 5 years? Your option are $40 billion, $42, $44, $46 billion. So the correct option is $42 billion. So which of the following links the Sea of Azov and Black Sea? So this we have discussed earlier. Your option is Strait of Kerch, Dardanelles Strait, Bosphorus Strait, none of the above. And the correct option is Strait of Kerch. Dardanelles Strait connects Sea of Marmara and Aegean Sea, and Bosphorus Strait connect Sea of Marmara and Black Sea. Question number 4. World 70% of demand of neon demand is fulfilled by which country? Your option are Ukraine, Russia, India, none of the above. So the correct option is Ukraine. Question number 5. Kinjal hypersonic missile belongs to which country? Options India, Russia, USA, China. So the correct option is Russia. So that's all for this session. Stay logical with Vidhigya, your best pal in CLAT Preps.